Hey Don, I spoke to the GM of the hotel and he said that any decision have to be made by the revenue manager. So no way, no way. The revenue manager, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse, man.
My name is Vito. You know, my family owns hotels. Many hotels. Business is terrible. You know, attending the revenue manager conference is my offer. You cannot refuse.
Hi everyone, here is Jong Corporate Director of Revenue Management of Palladium Hotel Group. We are a Spanish company based here in the Paradise, Ibiza. So please join us to the Revenue Manager of the series. You will enjoy it.
Hi there! The Revenue Manager the series has been the most followed event of the year with 22,000 views. Wow! So, this is an invitation you cannot refuse. Join us for the last 2 episodes of this series. See you there on July the 8th and July the 22nd. Ciao!
What do you need to know right now to stay ahead of the game? Join us and find out at The Revenue Manager, this series. My name is Christoph Hutter, and I'll see you on the live stream.
We are on top of the world, me and my dearest Kimia. So guys, today is going to be the 7th episode of the Revenue Manager series. This is going to be a very exclusive episode actually, guys. As we announced, we are going to run this live directly from one of the most iconic hotels in Europe. And this hotel is based in Ushuaia, is based in Ibiza, and the name is Ushuaia. And we are in this amazing suite. So let me ask my dear friends. So if someone wants to book this apartment today, how much is going to cost?
Well, today's rate is on its top end and it would cost 10,000 euros a night.
Just 10,000 euro a night? That's
Yes.
crazy, guys. So go on the website, find out more, guys. You're going to get a great deal if you book early. So now, what I'm going to ask you, darling,
Yes,
if you can take me around this apartment and explain me the reason why should I pay $10,000?
Of course.
Yeah, let's
go
go.
ahead.
Let's see.
Well, of course, I will show you around the room and the suite and its features. But first of all, let's keep in mind, you will live in VIP experience. You will have a VIP service 24 hours on your demand. You have a private butler service, and you can have a DJ anytime you want to enjoy in this room. But this I will show you later.
I love the fact that we can have a DJ, private DJ here.
Private DJ.
Amazing. Okay,
Well,
so we're here around the corner.
Exactly. Let's start with the simple things. First of all, you have a walk-in closet here. For us ladies, it's very important on that side. Then you have the normal facilities, a bathroom and a special Turkish bath with a steaming shower. You have high-end amenities with Hermes. Of course, you have a Cartier perfume to smell well, all the clarion screams and everything you could need.
Wow,
here,
I like this.
yes.
In front of the bed. Look at this.
Exactly, an indoor hot tub and also another one on the terrace, which I will show you in a moment.
And look at the view. Let me
Yes.
open the curtain in 1 second. This is amazing here. Look at this, guys.
Of course.
Ooh. It's very
Here you
long.
have a view over Playa d'Embossa,
Look at this.
and you can see the castle in Ibiza town in the back.
Fantastic.
You really
Fantastic.
can't get a better view. You are actually on top of the world.
So how big is this room?
244 square meters, including the special terrace.
Oh, it's bigger than my house, you know?
And mine.
Right.
We have over here a guest bathroom, which is also necessary because here usually people like to have guests to visit them.
Right.
On this side, we have a TV in case it would get boring, which I doubt.
I don't think you have time to spend watching TV in Ibiza, guys.
Not
There's a lot of
really.
things to do. And I love the table over there. Well, we'll get there in a few seconds.
Exactly.
Okay, so, wow, look at this. Dom Perignon, guys. This is for
Yes.
breakfast only?
Only for you. No. This is our special Dom Perignon fridge. You have Moët Chandeur, Veuve Clicquot, all the drinks you can actually need to make the night here special for yourself.
Ooh.
But keep in mind, you have a private butler and VIP service. Anything you need is just a call away, 24 hours a day.
And actually, we have here, guys, sitting one of the guests, and we will introduce this guy. He's the mindset here. This is the mindset, Mr. Sergio Zertugia.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Right. So where we hand this room?
Well, this is the kind of the party area. We have on one side the kitchenette with a fridge, a freezer, a wine freezer. Then we have our special sound system, the Pioneer speakers,
Wow.
a long table for hosting
Beautiful.
your guests, and of course our
That's
Pioneer
the one.
DJ
That's
set.
the one. That's the one I want
This is what you actually need the DJ for your
That's
special.
my position. I'm gonna be here today, guys. Don't run about revenue. Let's talk about music today.
I agree. Well, and last but not least, I'm happy to show you our terrace.
Oh, wow.
Here we have
Wow.
our second hot tub.
Can you feel the sound?
You can feel it, yes.
Can you feel the sound?
With our special chill out area here, the hot tub, as I said, and again, the view over Playa d'Embossa, our beautiful beach club, always good music.
I was actually there, Diego. I was actually down there this morning, guys, before putting my jacket on. Brilliant. Just brilliant.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you,
very
Kimia.
welcome.
You did
I
a
hope
great
you
job.
like it.
So, guys, I think Kimia provided us the right reason to spend those $10,000 a night. And 1 week, we can get a little discount maybe if we stay longer.
Maybe 9,990 for you.
Okay. Okay. Good. Right. Thank you, darling. Thanks for
You're
joining
very
us.
welcome. Enjoy
Now
the
we have to
Ushuaia
go back.
experience.
We go back to work now. Let me
All
go
right.
here.
See you later.
Bye. That's hard, guys. What life here. Okay, Diego and Sergio. Let's start now. We have to go back and make sure we're gonna open the webcam to our guest. 1 second. And I put this off. Okay, can you hear me back, guys? Cool. Now we finish with the webcam. Let's go and move on the main picture here. Okay, hey, we're back here on the stage, and we got this video maker, guys, a special star, Mr.
Hi, everyone.
Mr. Diego. Right, so let's start now. As you know, guys, the title of the day is Creative Revenue Management. This is the reason why we want to have this kind of fun introduction, explaining the location. Now, let me introduce the clip of the panelists, and then we can start the episode and start to make the business going. All right, guys. So welcome everyone. Good afternoon. This is Enzo again, and let me explain you again. This is going to be a great episode. We are running this directly from on top of the world suite at Ushuaïa Ibiza. I'm here sitting with Sergio Zertuge and Diego Fernandez, but I'm going to introduce you guys and leave the words to Scott, who's going to be moderating the panel of the day. Okay, how are you, Scott?
I'm doing great, Enzo. It's great to see you guys in Spain. I mean, obviously, the world is opening back up. Everyone, if you've watched the show before, this is a new background for me as well. I'm in Amsterdam this week with the master's students. And so, man, it's a fantastic week. And like I said, things are getting exciting. We're getting back to a little bit of normal. Good news.
Right. I see all the speakers there, including the organizer. Let's take a quick round, guys. Hi, Harry. Hi, Federica. Hi, Simone and Chris. So thanks to stay with us today all together. And Scott, it's your turn now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're ready to go, let's go. Let me introduce the panelists and let's start running. We've got thoroughbreds in the gate. We can't keep them there too long. So let me just go around in the order that I see them. And let me first introduce Ali Northfield. Ali is with Revenue by Design. So welcome, Ali. Great to have you. And just tell us a little bit about yourself and what Revenue Design does.
Hi, yeah, thank you very much, Scott. I'm the Managing Director of Revenue by Design. We provide the hotel industry with revenue management outsourcing and consultancy. We also have a training arm, and we are running a conference in October in association with two other revenue management consultancies in Rimini and Stockholm. So it's going to be a multinational event. So we're very excited about that on October the 12th. So that's what we do. Thank you.
Cool, Ali. I'm looking forward to our discussion. And next, let me go to Thibault Catala. Thibault is a friend of the program and someone that I think we know before. But Thibault, for those that don't know, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what Catala Consulting does.
Sure. Hi, Scott. So my name is Thibault. I'm the founder of Catala Consulting. We do outsource revenue management for hotels around Europe. So we allow hotels to hire a revenue manager at a fraction of the cost of hiring them full-time, which is quite relevant nowadays. And yeah, I'm quite excited to be here. I think like creative revenue management is one of my favorite topics in revenue management. So yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Cool. Excellent. And last but certainly not least, I think probably many people know him, but for us, it's the second time we're together today, actually. He was kind enough to speak to a group of my students earlier this morning. And so Lennert Jong with Citizen M, tell us a little bit about yourself for those who have been living under a rock.
Yeah, so name is Lennert Jong. I'm based out of Amsterdam. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Citizen M. If you don't know Citizen M, we are 21 hotels across the globe. Some in Europe, some in America, in the big cities of the world. And yeah, we own and operate the hotels, have a central model. And in the central model, I'm outside of Amsterdam in a little place called Voorschoten, where we actually do all of the central services.
Awesome. Thanks. Welcome, Lennert. And so, Federica, are you ready for us to get started? Let's kick it off. So, for those that don't know, we run this panel in conjunction with the Hospitality Net Revenue Optimization expert panel. Every couple of weeks, we put out a really cool, I think, a really cool opinion. You get a lot of really amazing experts, and then the way we followed up with the show is. We have the people that are going to be on with us, our guests, kind of pick out some of the topics that they thought were most noteworthy and the things that they saw. And so we're just going to kind of run through that list together. So, Federica, why don't you share the first one with us, and we'll get rolling.
Sure, with pleasure. Here it is.
Awesome. So the first one, and this one I think is really interesting because we're going to talk all about creative spaces, and we're talking about hotels, but one of the biggest impacts is our own home office space and everything that's happened over the last year. So, Lennert, you were the person that kind of was drawn to this comment. So I was wondering if you kind of, tell us what it was that caught your attention.
Well, I think it was actually, there's an obvious part to this, and I think there will be a lot of people talking about optimizing, let's say, the secondary space that hotels provide. I'll leave that to others. I think that's obvious to have people working out of your spaces, out of your empty conference centers, and have more local use of hotels. But I think the secondary impact of people working from home, and I think we're getting out of the pandemic now where people are going back to the office. I'm actually in my office And we've been going back to the office for a couple of months already, but this working from home is there to stay a little bit. It also means that people were able to relocate. So I'm not sure if this is the same in the countries that you're in, but we've seen an incredible, move, a migration of people moving outside of cities and wanting more space because they spend more time at home. And if people move out of the cities, it also means that there's going to be, new hotel demand coming in post-pandemic, and that's really something that I believe, if you think about it, not managing during the pandemic, but the long-term view is that we will see a different type of traveler, a traveler that is normally commuting, sitting either in a tube or sitting in a traffic jam, going to work. All of a sudden, they're spending 3 days a week perhaps at home and 2 days a week in the office, but they need a hotel room when they're going to go to Amsterdam or to New York or to London. And that's, I think, where, that caught my attention, that let's just not focus on the now, but also on the impact, what happens if these people are, 5 days a week at home and 2 days a week in the office. There might be an upside to that.
Yeah, I think, I think that's really one of the things that's driving it. I know, with your brand, the M stands for mobile. And so you were clearly, way ahead of the curve on that, but it's creating a situation, I think, where this work from home thing will pretty soon evolve into a portable job or a mobile job. And then I think people have an opportunity to enjoy their lives and really kind of have a much more interesting version of work-life balance that includes geographics. So how are you guys, are you doing anything specific to talk to those, to them as an audience so far, or are they just kind of showing up because your brand is compatible?
Well, I think it was showing up for us already last year. I would say around the same time that we were really picking up the conversations, the things that we could do. We were talking to our corporate contacts, the travel managers, and it doesn't matter if you speak to the big tech companies in Silicon Valley or if you're and actually picked it up with a large French company. Their travel managers said for 2021 they cut their business travel budget by half, but they doubled their team meeting budget. And that got us thinking like, oh, wow, there's something going on here, because there's just a shift. People spend an amount of time per week on work and on private. And there might be a shift. The useless meetings, or maybe not useless, but it almost seems useless to go to London from Amsterdam just for half a day, right? I would sometimes hit the plane at 8 o'clock in the morning and be back at before dinner, going to London for one meeting. Maybe those days are gone, but if I go, I might do it for 2 days, or there might be other travel. And the reason that people go to the office is no longer to just sit in a conference call all day. Those days you can do at home, but you're going there to meet with the team. And then there's people coming in from all kinds of hubs where they're working from home and they're enjoying their work-life balance. And that's my main point in this one, where I really agree on that working from home trend, that this is going to drive new business, and it might actually make up for the business that we miss, those one-day trips back and forth, the commuting to the cities.
Perfect. Ali, let me ask you just to comment on that. I think that there's a lot of us are seeing recovery with leisure first and foremost, but this is kind of a very interesting type of business travel that kind of has almost a leisure decision-making process associated with it, because it's not where I'm being sent, it's the fact that I can be somewhere else. So how are the hotels you work with starting to see that and take advantage of it?
It's certainly from a workation point of view, there's definitely a move towards people who have found that flexibility to work from home, to also extend that out to other destinations. So we've seen hotels do lots of things to try and accommodate not just the working person, but also their family as well. So certain hotels have extended their product line to include workspace within the hotel room that you actually purchase, but also extended facilities for children outside of the room itself. So much more than a creche, more of an area where children can also, if they need to, do their own schoolwork. So lots of different ways of being quite creative over this challenge, certainly that people have had in terms of trying to accommodate some of the restrictions on traveling, but also trying to get out of the house, definitely. So, and that's definitely been towards the, as you say, Scott, towards the leisure end of the spectrum, definitely.
And let me ask you, Thibault, I know that a lot of the hotels you support are in, let's just say, above average locations from a quality of life and view kind of a thing. Are you starting to see this kind of stuff move around?
Yes, I see this work from home trend quite strong nowadays during weekdays. A big fading away, but I mean, like, I have to answer with another question, if you allow me, because I really like the idea of Citizen M. I think you was the first one with a monthly subscription, very similar to the Pret-a-Manger, whatever you say it, in England. And how did you go with a monthly subscription? Because I believe in revenue management, working from home or any other creative approach you may have in revenue management, this kind of idea of subscription may be something underused. And I'm very keen on hearing any insights from Lennert around this subscription. Any feedback you have on this one? How did it go?
Lennert, that sounds like a question to you. I'm not sure. I know that it's relatively early in the process for you, but you know, what initial feedback can you give us on your experiment in the subscription space?
Well, we tested something last year with our corporates, and I think it was before we knew that we're going to hit the second wave of the pandemic. But you know, we were pretty positive coming out of the summer. COVID almost seemed gone, and you know, there was a vaccination program coming, and maybe it was naive to think that we wouldn't be, you know, put back in a complete lockdown. But we launched a subscription initiative to define a new relationship with our corporates. And it was actually fueled by a lot of companies that decided to go fully distributed and stop their offices in the big cities and have their people kind of on remote permanently. And we thought with our portfolio, we've always had living rooms and places where people can meet and rooftop bars that you can, you know, do private hires on. And, you know, we are this 24/7 space, not just for sleep, but also for work and play. And, you know, we wanted to test the water. So we went to around 400 corporates and asked them, would you be interested in a corporate subscription that includes a few rooms at a fixed price per month, but also some meeting rooms, use of our workspace. Yeah, we got some really positive feedback on it. Everybody was kind of, you know, tuned into it, but also everybody said, well, let's first see that we are allowed to go into the cities, into public spaces, but also to consume these hotel rooms. So, you know, we've also positioned it as a post-pandemic product and not a during-pandemic product. So the feedback was extremely positive. And yeah, one of the things that we really tried to solve in you know, as revenue managers really recognize, and I never understood it when I went into revenue management, why is a contract not a contract? We talk about corporate contracts, but there's no real commitment. It's kind of an indication of volume. You get a price back for it, but you don't know who's going to stay. It never targeted a certain individual, and that's what we try to address in this corporate subscription. And yeah, we will see once we got out of the pandemic how many people will be interested and companies interested, and if we can really redefine this relationship. But I'm pretty positive about it.
Yeah, it was. We had an opportunity to talk about it a little bit earlier today. It's just a really cool initiative, and you said something that really stuck with me, and that was sort of the crossroads that would have faced Netflix at some point. Do we continue to sell DVDs, or do we get into some sort of recurring revenue model? And I think a lot of us that follow kind of current trends, like the whole term recurring revenue model, is pretty exciting. So if we can figure out a way to create one for ourselves, I think we probably should. So Fetty, let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the next topic. Okay, so Sergio's not with us.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see him there. So now Fetty, you got to share it with me again. I need to read it. So, but there he is. I thought he disappeared a moment ago. So, Fetty, you mentioned, right, using technology and training your staff, and it was all about the idea of upselling, cross-selling, creating additional revenues, right? Getting away from just the typical primary revenue stream that we have. And so tell us a little bit about what caught your eye there.
Hello? My turn? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Well, yeah, I choose to talk about the use of technology because we realized that during this time, it was going to be key to focus on the ancillary services and to get more extra revenue in the destination or in the hotels. So in order to improve that, in order to do it in the right way, we really need technology. And actually, in the way that we know better our clients, then we're going to be able to offer them a specific offer or specific products. So in our case, during all this time of the pandemic, we developed different initiatives, which is the check-in online. We also launch and improve our app, where we can showcase all the outlets of our hotels and offer specific experiences and products through the app. And also we also focus on have a real good structure of our database, in our lake database, in order to identify our clients, to see what could be the most possible products that they can buy, like in our sauna beach hotels, a spa or experience, or in our city hotels, or other different products. So, but you only can achieve all these through technology in order to upsell and cross-sell, and actually it's more agile because you can be changing your offer and your products frequently based on the type of client that you are having in the hotel.
So you've got, it sounds like almost sort of a cycle of data collection and adapting your product to what that data says and everything. And how do you, I mean, those are not really easy changes to make in the traditional environment. How are you guys able to be agile enough to make that happen?
Well, yeah, it's a big challenge in order to achieve that. The first thing is that has to be a strategic task for the whole company, and starts to understand what are the sources, the different sources of information that we are getting from our clients during the whole customer journey, pre-arrival, during stay, and post-stay, and to organize all those sources, to put it in a lake database, and then try to make clusters or silos of information or segmentation based on different criteria, in order to, the secret is to identify these clients when they go to our hotels and offer them a specific product, specific experience based on their habits of what did they the consumption of that they have before in our hotel, or a specific information that we get. And then another key is to have the technology as a tool in order to push all this effort of cross-selling, upselling, to offer them a specific products to our clients.
Cool, thank you. So I'm going to actually ask Thibault and Ali in a second. I'm going to ask you, because you have, in your fragmented world, there's additional challenges of all that stuff, right? But Lennert, if you don't mind, as both a user of your product in multiple locations, and actually know a little bit about it, you guys do some really cool stuff with tech, and I think you're very tech forward in terms of understanding your customer and being able to implement that stuff. But why don't you share with folks a little bit about what you guys do to align that kind of customer need and technology stuff?
Well, I think it's to put.
That's a high complicated ecosystem with all the different platforms that we manage, CRM and all. Also, the technology that we use in order to serve that information, like that dashboards, Tableau, and actually we also develop our own software platforms in order to give tools to the people that is in the hotel, in the operations, where we track every single consumption of our clients, and then we try to understand much better our clients. So I will take quite more like an hour to explain all the ecosystem, but at the end is to analyze the customer journey of our clients, to identify those touch points during the experience where we can, when we get information, and try to structure such data in order to add value to the operations, to improve the experience of the clients. And in this case, talking about technology with the point of view of revenue, also to use it to upsell and cross-sell our different products, across all the brands or and the products or experiences that we serve in the hotel.
Thanks, Sergio. Lennert, let me ask you from a citizen end perspective. You guys really started out very sort of tech forward and always being, I think, driven by those type of data decisions as opposed to emotional and subjective decisions. And tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Citizen M in that space.
Well, I think there's two parts to it. The first part is really in the customer experience, so the technology that you apply there. And the second part is really technology that makes you smarter and that makes you make decisions. We believe that technology is there to make things simpler for guests, to make it frictionless, and that's what we constantly do. It also allows the human being to be the human being and not to, the boring transactional stuff like checking people in, and is that really customer experience or is that just a bad user interface? That's where we have a pretty strong opinion. And I would say also on the back end we become a lot better every year. With using not our own software, we always get either out of industry or some industry software, and then we pour some data into things like customer data platforms to be able to make the smartest decision and do A/B testing. And I would say with the growing up of the company also, then opinions get out of the way a little bit more and make place for people making hypotheses.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad you said that word because I can kind of throw that in as a follow-up. You mentioned really that it allows you to be not opinionated, but hypothesis-driven. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, what I find and that's what I find actually, that's starting, usually when people say that, you get an opinion. So you get my opinion now on this, but my opinion is, or my hypothesis is that in the hotel industry, we are driven too much by local decentralized management having an opinion based on maybe a fact that represented itself a couple of years back. And so every time you hear this is how we've always done things, or with my experience, I think we should do it this way, it's an opinion, and it could be a very valid opinion, but the person cannot back up that opinion. An hypothesis is something that you can prove, that you can back up, and you can be wrong about it, but you're not opinionated. And I think it allows a lot of people to participate. Anyone can come with an hypothesis and convince other people that we should spend money on this hypothesis. So I could convince you that by sending out this communication, we're going to see a 10% upswing of people converting into this mechanism. All right, well, how do you want to prove it? That should be the next question. What are the KPIs? What are the metrics? And then how long do you want to do it for? And let's go. And that's much more than we should do this because I've seen this in my previous job. It always works because then there's always an opinion, and then it's the person against the person, and that's the big difference.
When I was working in hotels a lot, it kind of became of the opinion towards the end that when someone says, in my experience or something like that, typically what they're about to say is pretty weak because it doesn't need that lead in if it's of value. And so now let me go to you first, Sally, and then we'll go to Thibault. So, all that sounds wonderful, but you guys are dealing with a very fragmented environment, I imagine, with multiple clients and a lot of different types of technology. Lennert's got the benefit when he puts something in, they're very centralized. It touches everything. They make decisions in that way. But you're, first of all, kind of in a secondary role where you're kind of having to help and consult, not necessarily actually holding onto the steering wheel. You're giving directions to the location, and then you're driving a bunch of different types of cars. So how does it come into play as soon as the environment gets fragmented like that?
I think certainly going back to kind of like the concept of experience and customer experience is really key at the moment. So irrespective of the technology that you have to recognize that there are so many customer segments that are behaving very differently at the moment, and the propensity to travel varies quite significantly across different customer segments. So the confidence regarding traveling, whether or not people actually want to stay within their own country or whether they want to go abroad. All of this relates to really turning the technology around to deal with the management of experiences rather than this really focused transactional view that we've taken in the past. I think the industry is is so driven by I have a room, I sell it, that's the end of the transaction. And I think there's probably a lot more to be said nowadays for looking at customer lifetime value, CLTV, rather than the typical transaction base that we used to have. So unfortunately, the technology that we use as well is very much driven to handle transactions, and all of our KPIs are driven around transactions. But talking to Lennert's point, I don't think the way people travel is going to go back to that sort of hugely transactional marketplace for quite a long time. So really, from our point of view, sorry to get to the end of the point, is really to step back and actually look at what do we really need to do to get the customer to travel? How can we make them feel reassured? What kind of messaging do we need to use? And so what we're having to do really is to try and pull together the CRM elements, the property management system elements, and the revenue management system elements together into one, to try and get some meaningful data out there, which allows us to look at customers and respond to what their real needs are at the moment as they come out of this situation, which will vary by country and even by region as well.
Yeah, no question, of course, right? I mean, you see different sources of business starting to wake up in different places, and in some cases just travel restriction related, where people can go.
Yeah.
And so understanding how that works, it was really interesting. Right after the pandemic, there was still so much pay-per-click advertising trying to entice me to break the law. So I thought, well, this is really interesting. You guys are spending marketing dollars on trying to get me to violate the travel restrictions that are in place, and I think it's just a lack of awareness. Same question for you, Thibault. It's a different. It's a different environment when you're dealing with multiple hotels and things like that. How are you able to, first of all, help them and bring them and leverage the fact that you see these multiple hotels, but more importantly, how do you make sense of all that stuff if it's coming at you in so many different formats?
I mean, the first thing which I recommend to any hotel and anyone listening, and we have been repeating weeks after weeks, invest in a CRM, in a good CRM. Start collecting data on your customers, because we understand much more of what's going on, maybe past, present, and future guests. And having those kind of CRM and data will help you validate or not your hypothesis and your assumption. But those data are very important to quantify your decisions and to make sure you go in the right direction. Because as Lennert mentioned, an opinion is great, but without data or without being able to quantify it, I think is worthless. So for me, the number one touch point is to invest in a CRM.
Right, have it be clean. Yeah, I totally agree. Right, completely agree. Okay, so Federica, let's move on to the next opinion. I think it was Max's. There it is. Okay, so Ali, I'm going to come to you on this one, but Max had some interesting ideas about how to utilize that space. I think co-working spaces, we're going to end up talking about that a little bit today for sure, but other types of things. And so I'm wondering, kind of share with us what was noteworthy about his post.
I guess we spent a lot of time also talking about creating co-working spaces. So to a certain extent, it was, for me, this concept of co-working spaces and the Airbnb type product. There's been so much talk about that in the industry, but really the idea really is to look at what is it exactly that the customer wants. If we are saying that customers are moving towards needing an Airbnb type of product, so typically that is reassurance on the fact that they won't be within groups, that they don't want to be necessarily taking up package holidays anymore. They want to be living, or they want to be taking holiday time in some kind of accommodation where they feel that they can be slightly isolated from other people. So I think really it's more about turning the product around so that you can speak to the needs of the guest based on what they're looking for from an Airbnb type product. It's not that we need to turn into an Airbnb type product or deliver a specific resolution or solution on that. Having said that, I did actually ask my Facebook group in terms of what they thought, any interesting Airbnb style products that they had seen over the last year, and they have, and Internet Crossover mentioned the Hoxton, basically during lockdown, coming out with camper vans that you could actually hire. So that was a really, really nice way of actually completely turning their product into an Airbnb style product. But what I also wanted to look at was Max's comment regarding put out weekly and monthly rates. So I think a lot of people have had challenges with pricing, significant challenges with pricing, like, how do you price to no demand? But pricing itself really just needs to be the architecture of where you want your product to go, either now or in the future. And people have had, I think, this concept of weekly and monthly rates, was Max speaking to the fact that there are different needs from different guests at the moment. Lengths of stay tend to be a lot longer, and if you make your pricing strategy talk to the needs of the guests, in as much as not just their experience, but also kind of like where you want them to go, then that will help you create the right strategy to actually implement, to make sure that you're going to be capturing guests in terms of both the experience and also both and secondly the pricing architecture as well to support that. So Max had a lot of good things, and so really it's more from the strategic point of view as to kind of like how do we do that. So yeah.
Yeah, he usually does. For those that know him, I think you mentioned something that about the experience, and I've heard Max actually say this, and so I copied it. I stole it from him, but I haven't used it and haven't credited him enough times I can start claiming as my own. But that's the whole idea of selling an experience and not a bed and a toilet, right? And so and really kind of appealing to people based on what why are they coming here, and we have an advantage. I mean, I think it's very difficult for an OTA to tell a very detailed story about something that's happening in our marketplace that only we have access to, but we can. And it reaches people earlier in the digital customer journey. If you think about kind of the way Google defines it, right? If we can get them to at the point when they're kind of thinking about what they want to do, then we become their friend that found them that thing, as opposed to where they're going to sleep when they do that thing they've already found. So I think there's a lot to be said about getting in front of that part of the process, and almost that merchandising sort of lends itself to your storytelling. If you're going to do some sort of a longer length of stay because you're trying to attract people that are digital nomads, for example, then it immediately, like, you already know how to market that the minute you start to create the merchandising for it, or the expectation you want. So,
and just one more point on that in terms of pricing. It's amazing how many hotels are still really focusing on the lead-in rate for the 1 night and the 2 night stay, when actually people want significantly longer stays. So those more switched on revenue managers that are pushing out for sort of slightly better deals on a longer length of stay are getting so much more visibility in the market when people are looking for longer lengths of stay. And that's just a simple way of talking to what the customer need is at the moment. But then there's also the requirement to have the flexibility to move that pricing around if other restrictions come in, because, like as Lennert was saying, with going out with the subscription-based pricing, their anticipation was that the market was going to stay with in a relatively stable position, which it didn't do. So you still need to be able to have that flexibility to talk to the willingness to pay of a customer, depending on their own lifestyle situations and their own experience that they're looking for at any one particular time.
You bet, for sure. Thibault, I saw you nodding. So what's your comment on that?
Yeah, I like the idea of the Airbnb style and experience. We have seen across our portfolio in the US as well, in the UK, in the US with Y Hotel, as well in the UK with Nestor, the air agent, where they have kind of hybrid properties, where they have like a full inventory, and they decide on how many rooms they do on serviced apartments with a kitchenette and everything, and some more focus on the hotels, like 1-nighter or 2-nighters. So this kind of hybrid properties, I think it's a new trend which is coming post-pandemic quite a lot. And going back to your point, Ali, on the Airbnb type of inventory.
Yeah, we one of the I'm going to plug my study trip again this week. One of the hotels we visited was the Student Hotel, and for those of you that are not familiar with the brand, it's only I don't think they've got but about no more than 5 or so units. I think Lennert, you would know better than I do, but really incredible business model, because one of the people joining me. One of the things about it is you can shrink the hotel right from semester to semester. They have the ability to decide how many students they're going to take. It's a very long length of stay. So, depending upon what your peak day is, for every Saturday night, you get a Sunday night. And so life is good from a revenue management perspective. But that's sort of very interesting, kind of getting into a very non-traditional segment. Really has turned out to be a really good hedge for them in the downturn, because with the exception of a little bit of time the schools were closed, they performed quite well. So Lennert, I want to ask you in terms of co-working space, because your hotel, I think, kind of was quite frankly visionary in terms of that whole idea that we like to hang out alone together. And I had an experience last night where I took my laptop downstairs into the lounge at the Citizen M here in Amsterdam, and had a conversation about the upcoming football match that was coming on later on in the day while I was doing my work over the top of my laptop with a total stranger. And it was really made it much more interesting. I could have sat in my room and ground out the, grading papers, which is what I was doing. But instead, I had kind of a cool conversation. And that's the piece I remember. I don't remember doing the grading. I remember having an interesting conversation with a guy from Denmark, who I feel sorry for today. But who it was just really, really fascinating, to be able to kind of do that. And what I was doing required about 50% of my attention. I hope my students aren't listening. But anyway, created this really robust sort of an opportunity. So you guys were kind of already there in that space. And so I'm imagining that's definitely based on how active the hotel was last night, paying dividends. But in what way is that working out really well for you now?
Well, actually, as a matter of fact, I would say 3 years ago, we started closing down, or how do you call it, locking down that space a little bit in certain hotels by not making it just a free pass for anyone to walk in, because in the end, Citizen M, as you mentioned, stands for mobile citizens. We have this target audience that we created our brand for, and people recognized that since 2008. When we opened our first hotel, we had these spaces. We have our living rooms. We don't want you to spend all the time in the bedroom. We have great communal spaces. But in certain hotels, you get overrun by local crowds that just, like to hang out. And if you ask them if they would like to drink something, they are, politely saying they brought their own drinks, that kind of crowd. And there's certain concepts around that don't mind that at all. But, if your focus is customer lifetime value on the longer term, and you're trying to roll out a global brand, this is not our bread and butter. Also selling, just co-working passes is not our bread and butter. It's a defense mechanism to be able to say to people, this is a hotel, right? It's not a public space. This is not, even Starbucks is not a public space, but people consider that public space. So this whole co-working, trend kind of became bigger than, what we wanted to cater for. So we just said, if you wanted to work here as a guest, no problem. If you're a frequent guest, also, even if you're not a guest, come, stay and work from our spaces. But if you're just out there from the street, then you got to pay a certain amount. That's different per hotel to sit there. It's also not something that we really focused on during the pandemic, because everybody was advised to stay at home. Why would we start incentivizing people to come and work out of our space if they're done with the kids or the dog or whatever? Yes, we offered some hotel rooms, and it's like a small band-aid, but our focus has not been extremely short-term, and that's always the case. I don't mind losing a little bit on Tuesday, the 20th of September, when the doctors are in town. If I can optimize, let's say, the relationship with a large corporate that needs 50 rooms on the day at a lower price, right? So that's, the focus for us has always been a little bit more long-term. So yes, we have great co-working spaces, and what happened to you yesterday, that's an example of something that we like to see happening every day with people that are traveling frequently. We are attacking loneliness in our concept. With a lot of hotels, you kind of feel that you have to go up to the room and you sit there by yourself until everything opens up again and the food outlets are open. We are open 24/7, and we want to cater to that, but we do want to cater to this frequent traveler. And if we need to be a bit patient for that, then we'll be a bit patient. We didn't want to just have this local game and maybe have 100 people per day paying 10 euros a day, optimizing a little bit of space to people that are going to disappear later on.
So, and let me just kind of final word, Ali. This was one of the points that you brought up. I think Citizen M sees it as a marketing tool, right? The ability to create those connections and create those environments for people. And where do you stand? Because one of them, I think, in a lot of the cases, when you read some of those posts, the implication is it's a new revenue stream, right? There's subscription revenue available, there's daily revenue available. Where we also just heard that in some cases it's a powerful marketing tool if we employ it that way, but it's to sell the primary product, the rooms product. So, kind of, how do you deal with that? Where do you come out on that one? Let me ask you differently, Ali.
So I love the idea of a subscription model. I just think it's so sexy, but it's not like going into, like, we have a subscription model here with Pret, I think it's Pret, £20 a month for unlimited coffee. And I can deal with that in my head. But when it comes to £200 a month for a hotel room anywhere, or more, or whatever model you have, it's just a little bit too difficult for me to make that mental leap as for that to be an outgoing dependency in my own private bank account, mainly because I don't have a lot of money right now. But but that said, I think if we could remove this concept of subscription-based pricing away from just saying it's a loyalty program dressed up, and actually look at kind of like why people would pay on a regular basis for a hotel. I think there's something in there that really makes sense, and I love it. I really love it, and I'm hoping that when people travel a lot more, we can actually do something more with it. Definitely. I think the other area to look at is looking much harder at ancillary revenue and where those streams can come from. I think that hotels could be a lot more courteous to their guests in terms of trying to get them to spend more. We just seem to be very old-fashioned in the way that we do our pricing. Just to add bits and bobs onto a hotel room there's nothing. It could be done a little bit more cleverly, I think, and I think we're losing a trick there in terms of how we actually sell pricing into the guest. It should be really just an extension of the experience.
Yeah, right. That's the issue of building packages to tack ancillary revenue on them, or building packages to create a well put together experience for someone that doesn't have the ability to find all the parts. So very interesting. Federica, let's move on to the next opinion. So Thibault, let me ask you about this one. Has everything to do with, creating revenues in different spaces, upselling the rooms we have. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like the one from Sylvia. Hi, Sylvia, if you watch. Mostly because of around this shift of mindset where you change your perception of the hospitality business being less about just selling rooms and more like a retail business. So it's more about like completely shifting your mindset into the revenue management and into the hospitality business. So that's what I really like. First of all, room upselling. We already talked about room upselling, and I'm going to go back to this one because I think it's super duper important. I saw a lot of comments on this one, but invest in a CRM, analyze your CRM data, use to understand like what's going on, what type of behavior, what type of spending you have. You will better understand and you will better communicate with your guests pre-arrival, during the stay. And not only you will increase your ancillary revenue because you upsell, you will also increase the guest satisfaction because you are looking after your guests. And nowadays we have seen something very interesting in your different properties. So price elasticity sometimes can be lower than previous years. Meaning people are tempted to pamper themselves because they have been inside for a while, and now they just want to go out and enjoy themselves. So use this opportunity to upsell. I think it can be a good opportunity. The second one I mentioned on Sylvia's comments was about the underutilized spaces. So we'll not go back to the work from home packages because I think we have been discussing this quite a lot. But one which we have found very fascinating was to rent your meeting spaces. So we have seen some hotels, for example, in London, using their spaces, mostly like the meeting spaces, the conferences, and so on, and to rent it to delivery services such as Amazon, FedEx, or other delivery services. They're empty anyway, so why not use it or to rent it for fixed price monthly? Because they're looking for expansions, they're looking for quicker delivery services, so that can be an opportunity. So get in touch with FedEx, with Amazon. I'm quite sure there will be some demand for this. And last but not the least, ghost kitchen. That's a topic we have been discussing for months now. Dark kitchen. The demand for online ordering is today on the roof. Take this opportunity to maybe convert your kitchen, not necessarily into a restaurant, but to go into a bit more dark mode and to only use Uber Eats, Deliveroo to send some order. You don't have any dining tables, you don't have any wait staff, only the kitchen staff and the kitchen equipment. So your cost will be lower and your profitability higher. So that's something you can consider. And last but not the least, and I think that's an overall mention, an overall comment on creativity. In your portfolio, we have seen the best hotels who have kind of survived the pandemic, and actually now they are accelerating their recovery. They have been very, very creative around their packages, around their approaches, very agile. And I will say, like, as we are in front of a big black swan of events, we have no idea of what's going on. We have no idea of how customer will look like in the future. And I believe that's an opportunity for startups. That's an opportunity for independent hotels to play with the big brands, because I feel that we are all back to square one. And we have to experiment. We have to make some hypotheses, like Lennert mentioned, and to try new stuff. And what has been working in one hotel, or what has been working in the past, may not be working in the future for you. Okay, so try new stuff, do some experimentation for 1, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, See if it was working, continue. If it doesn't, then you change and you try something else. But be as agile and as creative as possible. I think you will accelerate your recovery this way.
Thanks, Thibault. Just before we move on to the next one, Ali, just let me ask you for a quick kind of a comment on it as well. Just upselling. I mean, is it out there yet? Are people looking for that kind of stuff? Is there an opportunity?
I think to Thibault's point, we're not seeing that much resistance on rate. I wouldn't necessarily put upselling on that as a kind of the kind of clunkiness that we sometimes view upselling with. So it's kind of like, you've got this room, can I offer you an upgrade? But it's not like that. I think from what I understood from what Thibault said, it's more serving up that guest experience and therefore upselling the experience, a better experience. And we're certainly not seeing that much resistance on rate. And I think there is certainly there's a willingness for people to spend money because they have had such a tough time over the last sort of year and a half. That said, I don't know how long it's going to last for. It'll be interesting to see whether or not this is a new kind of guest experience. There's other things that are coming through in terms of guest behavior is that maybe while people are looking for longer lengths of stay, they're not as long as like 7 days, whole holidays. It's almost like people are looking for short, sharp, really intensive, really great experience kind of breaks. So I think there's this sense of people perhaps not being confident enough to travel for a long time at the moment, and therefore they're saying, let's just go away for 3 or 4 days or maybe 5, but let's make it really good. So I think to your point, yes, it's upselling, but it's packaged as an experience, and that actually probably just goes exactly against what I just said, that hotels just are not so good at actually upselling to guests. But actually, if you can make it into a really good experience, then I think it would work really well, definitely at the moment.
I think think about all of us for the first time we travel after this. I'm getting ready to go back to the United States in a couple of weeks for the first time. We didn't run the risk of getting upgraded. We just bought business class because no way am I going, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I work with some hotels in South Florida. The ones back from the beach, still a little bit depressed, but the ones right on the beach, 2019 occupancy, and the average rate is 25% above 2019 right now. So, when there's that, that opportunity for that premium experience, I think people are willing to pay for it right now because if nothing else, they've got money in their vacation fund, certainly from the last 18 months to be able to allocate to it. So Federica, let's move on. I want to make sure we get this next one in because I know Enzo is going to hit the gong on me any second now. So let's get this next opinion in real quick. Okay, so Sergio, let me ask you. This is the one I wanted to make sure that we got to. Community, right? The whole idea of community, and there's an opportunity for us to start to think about that in a bigger picture. Again, not selling a bed and a toilet to an individual, but creating an experience and creating an experience for groups of people. So tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing to create that hub, if you will, or that community.
Yeah, actually, I choose this topic because to create community, it's one of the core values of our city hotels brand Only You, which they put on in focus to how can I say, to try to meet the local people with the customers within the hotel. So we create that community where we invite the local people to the hotel in order to live in the hotel in terms of the outlets and so on. But as an example that we did during this pandemic, everybody was talking about the co-working places, and so we did as well in Only You. My colleague Alfonso, they create a product in order to offer empty space or empty rooms as a co-worker space. But in this case, I'm not talking about the co-work space itself, but with the community and ecosystem that we create in Only You for those ones who hire these co-working spaces, that we identify a niche, or we try to push a niche in for the co-workers that I was for the people from startups based on the tourism and technology. So besides offer them co-working spaces in the Only You hotels, we create a platform to push, to support all the startups, entrepreneurs that they were trying to develop a startup based on the travel industry or the tourism. So we organize contests, we organize events in the hotel with this community. So suddenly, Only You, as a brand, as a hotel city brand in Madrid, becomes kind of the hotel or the scenario, the platform for the startups, entrepreneurs of travel industry, where they meet over there, where they have meetings over there, where they and also we also create them kind of content to them in order to support them. Like Abel, our president, they also was in an event in the Only You in order to talk with them and to offer them a prize for the best project that they present. I was part of the jury as well. So it's a matter of create or involve different, let's say, groups. Like in this case, the startups, entrepreneurs in your hotel. We give them certain content in order to use or to sell also your space. About community, another example, in our Sun and Beach hotels, I can tell you the example that, for example, here, the gym in the Hard Rock Hotel Ibiza, it's open for all the local ones. So even when we are not in season, when we are not open during this in off season, we still keep the gym open for our clients, the local clients that they came to the gym during winter, and it's also another example of how can we understand about trying to generate this kind of community with different segments or niche of people, you know.
Thank you, Sergio. Thibault, let me ask you, what kind of stuff are you seeing? There were some comments even that people posted about getting involved in the community, right? Bringing the community and offering your space for meetings in order to get people in the hotel and give them experience. And then Ali, I'm going to come to you in a second and ask you a little bit about that children's space, because that was one of the things that came up in the comments as well, right? And probably I'm looking around, but maybe you, Sergio, but no one else is old enough to remember the pre-video game era, right? When there was a game room that you put quarters in machines and you went down, and all of the parents sent their kids down there so that they could finish dinner without the kids screaming at them and everything. I'm wondering if there's not an opportunity for us to renew that sort of a peer-based babysitting structure that many hotels used to have on Fridays and Saturday nights. But Thibault, what are you finding?
I mean, I love this idea of creating a community, and I think nowadays it's even more relevant as we look at YouTuber, influencer, Instagram, and so on. But the notion of community, something we have been discussing on the Revenue Acts with Christina quite often. But the community around not only at the hotel, but online with the social media, with your email marketing, creating a community around your brand. I think Citizen M or Oxton, they have been doing this quite well. I think it's very, very important. And nowadays, even if you have your hotel closed for some reason, it's not an excuse to not develop and continue to communicate with your community, be it around your brand, be it about sustainability or whatever. But this notion of community is very, very important. So yeah, I will recommend any of my hotels to go around developing this community quite strongly.
Cool. And then Ali, I just want to follow up with you based on that comment that you made earlier. Can you share some more with us about what's potentially being done in that? I think you might have used the term children's play space, if I'm not remember. But
yep, children's play space, but also it was really related to people who are basically using workation spaces, so they're working and they're on holiday at the same time. In some cases, it may be that the children are on holiday, but they still need to work. So some properties are actually offering the opportunity for play spaces, but with a little bit of learning associated with it. So if they want their children to actually have an opportunity to learn whilst the parents are working in their working spaces, that's something that's coming up a little bit more frequently. And the other one is certainly here in the UK, we have this concept called glamping, which is like glamorous camping. And that was brought inside the room by some hotels being very creative with children and offering them little teepees to sleep in. That was, so those are sort of like nice creative things that you can do with kids and even within the room itself, the actual hotel room itself, rather than just perhaps the tertiary space outside of the hotel room. So lots going on, lots of innovation, I think.
Yeah, there was a really, really cool innovation. One of the hotels shared with us this week that hopefully never needs to be used again. But during the height of the lockdown, when we couldn't be in restaurants, what they did was pop-up restaurants. They did pop-up room service. And so they rented rooms, not overnight, just for for a certain amount of time. And then they served meals from different restaurants that they brought in the individual rooms, which gave people the opportunity to be separate and the social distance that we need. They actually had live entertainment in the lobby landings, and so people left their doors open and they could listen to music and that sort of thing, and be served a really top-notch kind of like I said, a pop-up restaurant kind of a meal in their guest rooms. So lots of creative solutions. Hopefully some of them we never have to use them again, honestly, but they're there. Okay, Federica, let's move on to the next one, because I think I know which one it is. There we go. Okay, so Lennert, this is your space, so I really am looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I think you and I both, well, I know we both know Kelly McGuire, very smart lady as well. So comment a little bit on what she talked about in terms of bringing data and creativity into the same place.
Well, I think that's indeed the respect for Kelly McGuire is there. I think her whole viewpoint that she published was extremely smart, and it's on the point. Is that there might be a lot of creativity, but creativity without data it doesn't automatically prove to be successful. And what I really like about this is that this is not just COVID, and you can make up a little bit for, especially if you have hotels in big cities. At some point when there's a lockdown, everything is gone, and you can make up for it a little bit. But what I like about the viewpoint is that combination of data and creativity, that combination could lead to great ideas. And I can name a few examples, but I think it's depending on where you are. If you're a resort in Ibiza, your creativity needs to be different than if you're a city hotel, or if you're a leisure hotel in the countryside in the Netherlands. So, but that viewpoint completely, and I would recommend everybody to read that. For me, it really touches head on what needs to be done from whatever situation you are. Data can lead to insights, and then creativity can provide the solution. Or, the solution can be coming from, and this is usually how I operate, it's either data that's like, oh, wow, this is interesting. Knowing that I have 5,000 rooms to sell every day, if this happens to one of my customers, what about if I could make this work for 5,000 people a day? But it could also be something else. It could be an experience that I have somewhere that starts to, lead to the creativity. And then you start from the solution, and then you create the data to back it up. When I was thinking about subscription, I'll give you one example. And I like your challenge, Eddie, on the price of the subscription. And for a perishable product, how can you introduce a subscription on a hotel room? A friend of mine owns an Italian shoe business in Amsterdam, luxury shoes. I would really welcome everybody to visit it. They've been, of course, struggling through COVID, but during COVID, they launched a subscription. And these are, handmade Italian sneakers, like €300 retail pricing. And they convert every single customer that comes into the store or orders online into a subscriber. I have now a sneaker subscription for €75 a month. I no longer need to think about where I'm going to buy my sneakers. He locked me in completely. Every quarter, he just sends me an app. Hey, it's time to order new shoes. Which one do you like? I don't even think about it anymore. And normally, if you have to buy €300 pair of shoes, you're like, wow, my God, is the vacation pay in yet? And that's the creativity I like. But it's also then, he took it. He said, okay, what is going to be the data backing me up? How does it change my business model? And that really, I always like viewpoints by Kelly. In this case, I think she's spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, really interesting. That sneaker subscription sounds absolutely fantastic. I think that's very cool. So let me just really quickly, Ali, let me give you an opportunity for one final word. They're going to shut us down, and then Thibault will do the same with you. But one final word on what we talked about today.
I'm always keen on having a really solid pricing structure available, and I think it's been easy for people to lose sight of like a long-term pricing strategy. You should still keep one there. Be agile, but still keep a really, really clear direction on what your pricing is trying to do for you, and the yield management or the revenue management gets wrapped around that. So just keep it clean and keep it solid and keep going.
Excellent. Thibault, final word?
Yeah, same. I mean, like, I love to recommend books, and I think it goes back to what Lennert was mentioning. But this book on the inevitable from a technology standpoint, I think the hospitality industry is lagging behind anything else, and I believe we have a lot to learn for in terms of innovation and technology. And as a subscription, I think it's going big time. So you're leading the way, Lennert, on this one, definitely. But in terms of overall comments, keep going, as Ali mentioned, try new things, experiment, do some hypotheses, some assumption, and most importantly, back it up with as much data and quantify it as much as possible, because it will, I mean, again, the most important today is to learn the new customer trend, to learn the new behavior, and the more and the faster you will be able to learn, the faster you will recover post-pandemic. So yeah, keep going and be creative as possible.
Awesome. Well, Enzo, there you go. That's kind of the final word, sir. Over to you.
Fantastic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't catch you there. I saw the wrong person. Go ahead.
Okay. So Enzo is also there. We want to.
Yeah. I will go to Lennert. Come on.
You want to thank everybody meanwhile? Yeah, and we can go to the next step, right, Enzo? Shall we show the video?
Let's go.
To find out who the next guest will be.
Right, so who we have? It's already there, Richard?
Yeah.
The next?
Michael.
Okay. Michael, right. So you can launch the video, Fede, right? Here we are, Michael. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Cool, right. So you have your 15 minutes now. Try to do your best to pitch your product, your solution, and let's see some questions coming from the panelists.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. I will not pitch anything. My understanding was I have 7 minutes, right, to pitch, and then we got the questions. So it's going to be a very quick 7 minutes on slide, and then I look forward to the questions from the panel.
Yep.
So
here we are.
Good afternoon from sunny Munich. Quick hitting it on the agenda. So I'm going to do a quick intro, and then I pretty much want to provoke thoughts on 3 items. The one is flexible segmentation. The one is strategy before forecast, and the third one is controlled automation. And then we have the Q&A session, and a lot of things the panel already mentioned is kind of part of those 3 points, what I have prepared for the next couple of minutes. So who am I? So that's me, Michael Shaeffner. I'm based here in Munich. I look after the sales team for Duetto. And that's me actually post-corona look, feeling more like a dad, papa, who's very close to 2 crazy kids and running a sales organization and SaaS business. Flexible segmentation, right? So what does that mean? We simply have to be more agile and dynamic, right? We live in a world where everything is very fast moving, as all of us know. And as you can see those runners on the screen, we have to adapt quickly. So when we look at our technology, what we have, and also when it comes to yielding, like what we're doing, right? Providing the right price for ideally each single guest, we have to move through this world where we are coming from and we're going into, and that is not kind of any time over, right? So coming from a very static PMS world, we're used to have static segmentations. We need to learn to come into a world where we're able to adapt, right? Before the pandemic, we were used to have overseas business, and all of a sudden, we were in an environment where we're pretty much depending on people within the country, right? And we need to be flexible moving forward, because we are not stuck to any patterns what all of us used over the past decades. We really are now depending on governments making new restrictions or lifting restrictions, and that means for us, for commercial teams, that we need to be more flexible in adapting to those needs. That leads me to strategy before forecast. So we still live in a world where a lot of revenue decisions, a lot of commercial decisions are based in a forecast. And we went through pure madness in the past 18 months, right? And we're still in it. And we simply cannot afford to do that, to relying on forecast. So we need to make sure that our strategy, going to the flexible segmentation, is very fluid, is very dynamic, being able to go left the one day and go right the other day. Earlier we spoke about gaining new revenue streams, like co-working, like takeaway food, like all those things. That's all strategy, what is not in a forecast. So I think the whole industry, we need to go more into the strategy thinking and being able to do that. Now, a good example is Sunday, right? Coming Sunday, where we have the grand finale in London. So I'm sure this is nowhere in any forecast, right? And then the Sunday afterwards is also not going to display anything like that, what we're going to see hopefully on Sunday in London. So what we want to challenge the industry, and what we challenge us at Duetto every day, is that we want the strategy to be in the middle of the decision center, and the forecast being a byproduct of that, which is good to measure performance, but it should not be the key foundation to build your pricing strategy and your pricing recommendations, because during a pandemic, you might have a lot of problems with that. And then moving over to what we call controlled automation, the pandemic showed us that we need to work hand in hand, human and machine. We talk a lot about AI, but what we shouldn't forget is that we live and work in an industry which is still based on technology from the 60s, which is called the CRS, right? So I think we all do very well if we slowly go into this world of AI. We as human beings, we're still needed, right? We hold the strategy, and ideally the machine is doing all the tactical things, right? I think we all agree that the machine is probably the better system, which will tell me if I'm charging $349 or $369 or $385 on Sunday, but the strategy, kind of who will be coming, who will be staying, that is not there yet, where a machine will take over on that. Maybe in 5 to 10 years that will be the case, but right now we believe, and it's also scientifically proven, that is the best combination to hit the highest kind of profits. What that means is to revenue management is that the profile needs to adapt, right? People need to think more analytic. People need to be technology experts, because in the end of the day, that comes all down to real-time integration. That comes all down to being fully integrated with all respective systems, and that is another challenge which we're still working on. So those three challenges, or those three topics, are the ones that we think are really key in order to be successful moving forward. Who are we at Duetto? We were founded in 2012, and fast forward a couple of years, we are here running on a cloud software with 4,000 hotels. We're super excited to have 2 of the panels as part of our clients, the Citizen and Palladium Group. As you can see here on the right-hand corner, we run on a revenue strategy platform. And actually, when we talk about modern revenue management, we believe in a combination of 3 things. The first one is very obvious. It's yielding, right? Everybody associates an ROS with yielding. The second one is reporting / analytics, which when you look at both of them together, it's not that easy, and not a lot of systems out there are offering that. But the one piece which is very often forgotten and very underestimated, but is already very important, but will become more important, is the distribution piece. Right? So we need to make sure that whatever rate we decide, or the system decides, applied from the strategy, is in real time automatically distributed into all relevant systems, and making sure that we do not have to, use 2 or 3 systems to put into our rates and so on. So that's a really important thing. My time is running out. This is 7 minutes is very short. If you missed the last 5 minutes, there's 3 key takeaways I have. Be agile. The wind may turn at any time. Look at Boris Johnson, one announcement and everything changes all of a sudden, and business in certain countries picks up right away. Focus on your strategy, but also challenge your strategy, right? The strategy is what will make you money. It's not your forecast, it's the strategy, and you need to adapt. And then make sure you combine human and machine. That is success in that combination. Stay curious. Always challenge the status quo, and look forward to seeing everybody very soon, hopefully somewhere in this world. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael, for the great presentation. And now we have some minutes for some questions. Who would like to ask the first question to Michael? Lennert, go ahead. Thank you.
I thought I would raise my hand before speaking, but Michael, I'm going to put you, I wanted to ask you this question anyway. Our logo was on there. So yes, we have a relationship with Duetto, and consider this a development request. But when, as you've just heard the panel, let's say we are focusing on long-term customer lifetime value optimization. How does Duetto look at that? Because you're actually, the typical hotel, what reports into STR, the occupancy and the ADR of yesterday, and your monthly budgets are created on arrival dates, and e-commerce people are looked at like, what are you talking about? Booking dates and customers, and when is this customer coming? Is he coming? Cancellation, and it's all short-term focused, right? It's optimizing the day. So is Duetto planning to do something on customer lifetime value?
I know you wanted to say, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you did it, so that's absolutely fine. Yes, absolutely, and actually that was the vision from our founders from day one. As most of you guys know, we came out of Las Vegas, where the gambler's value is the most precious good, right? And from that idea, Duetto was actually kind of initiated. So for the founders of the company, the goal was always to have what we call personalized pricing. But in order to get there, you need to have an RMS in place to have the yielding piece, right? And Lennert, obviously with your team, we work very closely on that, right? A next step to go there is going into the profit piece, right? In order to be able to go to the customer lifetime value, because revenue is kind of nice, but in the end, it doesn't help me anything if my costs are going through the roof, right? So in order to go there, we're focusing now on the profit piece, what we already have in some parts of our apps, and slowly moving it into the DNA of the rest of the app. And then the third piece is the really tricky piece. When I come back to the point I was mentioning before, it's the collaboration between all the respective distribution partners out there, right? So in order for us, Duetto, to display the right rate for the right customer, depending on the value, we need to be hooked up, connected in real time with the booking engine and the CRM, right? Because when you, Lennert, come on the webpage, in that second, right, a lot of data needs to be calculated in order to have that. So yes, the answer is absolute. That was always the goal from Duetto. We will go there, but we cannot go there on our own. We will need the help of the partners to have that real-time integration. But yes, that's the end goal, if there is one, so to say, of Duetto, absolutely.
Thanks, Michael. And in exchange for putting you on the spot, you also get something. So on the second point, you really helped us, and it's really true what you said. I can testify to that. We really work with these guys on creating net revenue management. So optimizing for revenue minus the cost of distribution on a daily basis. So every Friday afternoon, I get an overview from our demand team that has net and gross, and I can choose what I look at. So that's fantastic. So now let's deliver on step 3, Michael.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lennert.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we have time for one last question very quickly. Is there somebody who would like to make a question?
Yep, I have one. Yeah, so I'm interested in your in the fact that a lot of people are saying that forecasting is pretty much impossible at the moment. How have you managed, or how have you adjusted to cope with maybe the shorter term forecasting that's needed, or the very much smaller market segmentation that's in the market? Obviously, there is demand. How are you managing to actually look at that and forecast ahead?
Yeah. A very good question. Yeah, it is very difficult, right? And luckily, that's what I mentioned earlier. We're not depending on the forecast because a forecast is a byproduct in Duetto. We're relying on demand. So we're very fortunate that was always the idea. So it didn't have an impact on Duetto. What we have done, and we looked at, actually just looked at it yesterday at the graph when COVID hit, right? So when COVID hit, you saw that the forecast accuracy obviously went through the roof, right? Because that was simply not plannable. But so what we did is then we really went to a short-term forecast. And that's one of the things that we have adapted. The KPI everybody used in the industry was always kind of same time last year, right? So what we had to do very quickly is adapt to same time last week, same time 2 weeks ago, same time 4 weeks ago, right? So it put a lot more kind of dynamic twists to us as well as a company because we got challenged again, right? Because we had to adapt to a new status quo, which was called pandemic. So to answer your question, we had to do it way more short term. And what a lot of people always forget, there's still a lot of data massaging in the background from data analysts. So therefore, it's really important that you have to write a team in the background to make sure that they currently work on the data and therefore on the forecasting.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. We really appreciated your presentation, and yeah, we want to remind everybody that data are really necessary. So thanks for sharing your product to give insight. So now we move on with the next speech and say bye to Michael. And
thank you, everybody.
We go from Michael to Michael. We will see. I will launch the next video, and we will see who the next will be.
I'm Michael Heflin with StayNtouch, and I'll see you soon at the Revenue Manager.
Here we are. Open the camera to Michael. Hi, Michael from StayNtouch. Welcome.
Hi there. Thank you very much. How's everybody doing?
Very, very well. Very, very well. As you have seen, we are already in the middle of the episode, and there has been a very hot conversation about the creative revenue management. So now we want to discover your pitch. I don't want to steal time. So as always, you will start with your pitch, and then we will go with Q&A. So I see that you have already shared your screen. So for now, you have 15 minutes.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. This has been a super interesting discussion. It's been a great joy just to be a part of it. I've learned quite a bit. It's been, a great discussion about how we see the industry evolving, which is something that obviously at StayNtouch, we spend a lot of time thinking about and really focused on how we can help be a part of that evolution. And I think what we wanted to spend a few minutes talking about today sort of fits very cleanly into what a lot of the focus of this discussion has been. I come from a marketing background, and we sort of think of the world in terms of the 4 Ps of marketing. And I think quite often revenue management focuses really only on the pricing and promotion sort of components and misses the first P in the 4 Ps of marketing, which is the product piece itself, right? And really how, as hoteliers have been forced to be more creative, one, I think how good that ultimately is for the industry, but two, sort of really reimagining what exactly does a hotelier sell, right? Traditionally, we've sold 20 hours of room access, right? If we think about it sort of in terms of traditional check-in and check-out times, you get a hotel room, you get it from 4 p.m. to 12 the following morning. That is your asset, right? Is the asset that is being monetized by a hotel. There have been a lot of great discussions throughout the past hour and a half about subscription models, about co-working spaces, about evolution of the physical asset itself. And this is where we think technology can really revolutionize the way that we think about revenue management, in that we aren't just pricing and promoting our product, but we're being, I think the word you all have used and I really appreciate, is agile in how we define exactly what our product is. and allow that product to shift, right? If we've learned anything through the past, 18 months now, it is how important flexibility is, right? It is that we don't know exactly what our customer needs, and what our customer needs can change at the drop of a hat, or with a simple announcement, as we just referenced. And being able to adjust to that and adjust and operate on the fly is more critical today than it's ever been. And that's why we look at our property management system not just as a property management system, but as we jokingly refer to it, as a property monetization system, which is how do we actually look at redefining our product in the way that will help us maximize how we monetize that asset given market demand as it exists today, right? And StayNtouch was founded on this vision, which has made sort of reacting to this place in time a lot easier for us. Rather than being built on a day, we're built on 24-hour individual blocks of inventory. So you can sell any room or any definition of a room for an hour a day. This works great for transient location. This works great for city centers. It's obviously a huge benefit at airport hotels, et cetera. But that's changed now, right? As we re-envision how we monetize our hotel, this also allows you to sell conference rooms or leverage individual spaces, right? We've got very creative hotel partners who are using this to sell private dining opportunities, to sell access to day beds, right? To sell pool lounges. All of those things can be inventory managed through a really robust property management system and then can be monetized however you desire to do that. Whether that's packaging it with the room product or whether that's selling it individually. There was a great discussion earlier about becoming a hub for your local community. Well, this is a great way to do that and monetize those opportunities, is leveraging your assets in unique ways to, vary what your RevPAR can look like as you start to think about that going beyond this available room concept. So this is something that's been sort of core to our vision since the founding of StayNtouch, and I think has become all the more relevant as the market has sort of continued to adopt and evolve here. In some ways because we were forced, and in some ways because hopefully that's where we were going anyways. To take advantage of that takes a really integrated connectivity model, right? To be able to sell, not just create this inventory, you need great alignment between PMS, CRS, RMS, your CRM, all of our favorite acronyms. But all of these different tools have to speak to one another in a way that allows you to actually capture the monetization opportunity that exists. And so that's been a critical focus of ours as well, is helping to move the market along in the ability to actually distribute and monetize flexible assets, and to do so on an hourly basis, and to be able to price and promote, right? As we do move into those critical areas, be able to do that on a more unique definition of what an inventoried asset looks like as we move towards monetization. The other thing I quickly wanted to touch on is, you guys had a great discussion earlier about upselling and making this sort of a core part of the training and development of staff and resources. One of the things that we've found to be very, very successful in upsell is really giving the guest control, right? If they are allowed to optimize their own experience through integrated guest mobility, through the way that you define and make available monetized assets, your upsell ability goes way up. I mean, we see up to a 240% return on this through automated upsells. And a lot of it is because the customer is driving it. They aren't feeling pressured into making certain decisions. They're just able to react to what their desire is in any given time. One of you was just talking about just going out and buying the first class ticket because you don't want to risk, right, not getting your upgrade on your flight. This is the same process, right? It's allowing them control and to choose what they want in a setting that allows them sort of the comfort of the control being in their hands. So you can define your assets exactly as you want to sell them as the hotelier, and then allow the guest to choose what the perfect fit is for this unique instance, right? This is about, as we talk about customer lifetime value, a lot of that comes down to responding to the individual moment. When I travel for business, my desires are very different than when I travel for leisure, or very different than when I travel with my family, which is work leisure, right? And being able to respond in real time, it's great if you know me. It's better if you just ask and let me answer. And so building a system that does that, we think is really optimal to maximizing revenue opportunities through great product definition and great product access through a fully customized and integrated technology stack. So I think I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the presentation. And yeah, that was really interesting. I'm sure that there are many questions. Who would like to go first? Thibault, please.
I have one, yeah. Thanks a lot, Michael, for the presentation. A great one. I know StayNtouch, so I actually like your PMS, so I will not put you on the spotlight like the previous one did.
Thanks. Lennert kind of brutal there in the last one.
Yeah, no, but I believe there is a big trend nowadays everywhere on staff shortage, and we are lacking a lot of talent in the hospitality industry. What is your approach to automation, and could StayNtouch and other modern PMS and their automation could be an answer to the staff shortage, or do you think it could be an extension of the team? So what's your approach to automation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as you said, I think a very critical focus area for the hospitality industry in general right now. I think we really look at this from two different perspectives, right? And one is maximizing our human capital, which has been a critical focus of ours all along, which is the more intuitive a system is, the easier it is to train on, the easier it is to use. We think the more value you get out of your human capital, right? So if one person can now do the function of 2 or 3 people, that is a great thing, right? Our tagline is be unburdened. We think of hospitality as the more we can unburden staff in the simplest of models, which is right because we're fully mobile and tablet driven, you don't have to have a front desk at all. That frees up resources to not just stand behind a desk and wait for guests, but you can now greet a guest, you can carry a bag, you can help deliver drinks, right? You are free to unburden the way that you deliver hospitality. So we think sort of maximizing the value of your human capital is step one in that evolution. It allows you to bring in new talent. You don't need people who understand legacy systems. You can bring in people who are just great with people, right? Allow hospitality to really shine because your technology is empowering that rather than sort of restricting the way that you interact with guests. I think the other side of that, automating tasks and especially automating communication is really critical. And this is also where we think our mobile technology is really important because it can do things like auto-assign what rooms need to be cleaned based on pre-assigned check-in schedules. And those alerts can be immediately directed to the mobile phone or the tablet that your housekeepers are carrying around with them, right? Same for the way that food can move throughout the hotel. Same with the way even that you plan for check-ins and check-outs to make sure you're not overlapping rooms, right? You can redo auto-assignment at any time. So we do think that a lot of that capability, primarily around communication and how communication moves through the hotel, is really critical. If we can unburden staff so we can maximize the benefit of the human capital we do have, and we can improve data flow and communication, we think that you can just do a lot more with a little less and really make sure that your staff is focused on creating the guest experience. You guys had a great discussion at the beginning of this about guest experience. That's really where we want to live, right? Is to make sure that everyone that works in your hotel is focused on how to create the best guest experience, not how to check the right box, right? Not how to make sure that your reporting is all configured. That stuff just needs to work so that the people can focus on the people, right? And really be about the guest. That's certainly our approach.
Fantastic. That's really key. That's really key. So we still have time for at least another question. I'm not sure if Sergio or Ellie, I see that you are moving, or Lennert as well.
Yeah, I have one actually on the 24 blocks a day of inventory. I think it's a great solution, but is it a solution to a problem that isn't there? Because I kind of like the concept, but our hotel's ready for that, to sell rooms for 8 hours or 4 hours, or do you see a large demand for it?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. I'll be honest here. I don't think that the market is totally ready for it yet. We have individual hotel partners that use it very well, right? That literally run at occupancy that in traditional terms would be over 100%. This is especially true at airport hotels. It's a problem that they've had to deal with for decades regardless. And primarily had done it manually before there was technology that enabled this to be automated and to align all of staff operations around this concept. I think that it is of varying value. We're starting to see a lot more hoteliers use it in more creative mechanisms. So we've got a hotel on the East Coast here in the US that uses it for defined reservations. They'll actually assign access to their premium restaurant through the room and then carve out that you get 2-hour block of dinner reservations with your room. So people are starting to use it in much more creative ways. And we see hoteliers that design their entire sort of hotel concept around the idea of flexible stay. So while I don't think that the industry as a whole has gotten there, and certainly part of that is a technology problem, right? A lot of the distribution tools can't handle this yet. Some of the revenue management tools can't fully handle this yet. So we think the industry is going to go that way, right? Which is how do we maximize the value and flexibility of our room? Because it also makes early check-in and late checkout much simpler. It doesn't change the reservation. It just simply tacks an hour on. You can charge for those individual hour blocks, which we're seeing a lot more of our hotels do, which, right, you can say, sure, you want a late checkout, you want to check out at 4 p.m. That's 4-hour blocks. Each of those blocks costs, $8 extra. You're going to pay for that $32 of 4 extra hours. So we're seeing people use it in maybe more creative ways than originally was intended, which was just, you want to do a day stay, you need an office to work in before your flight out of New York, and it's easier to do that in a hotel room, take a quick shower, right? Those things are happening, but we're starting to see people get much more creative in the way they use this. And I think that's just a snowball that will continue to grow. We're certainly, ahead of where the market is from a usability perspective, but we like creativity, and you're starting to see a lot of hoteliers get very creative in the way they use it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. And I would like to pick up this question from the audience. They said, with Opera, Oracle also got into cloud. How do you stand against them? And with this occasion, I would like to ask you, we have just 30 seconds, to ask you if you can just list 3 strengths of your tool, why we should choose your tool, which is your strength and your USP.
Sure. Yeah. Rather than speak negatively about any of our competitors, I'll speak, I think, positively about our system. So, I think what's the most unique about StayNtouch is that it was actually architected in the cloud, right? So it's not a platform that was migrated into the cloud. It was actually built directly within AWS, right? So it operates on a cloud premise. It's architected specifically. That brings tons of benefits in the way that we do data orchestration, in our ability to meet specific country requirements for where data is managed and transferred, right? PII benefits, all sorts of benefits on being actually cloud architected. I think the flexible room definition is a very critical piece of our inventory. The ability to define assets however you want, right, in a customized fashion, because we're not physically tied to your location. You can move those things around, and we can actually give hotels the ability to do that. And I think finally, the value of the 24-hour blocks of inventory, the fact that, again, we're architected on that. We didn't build it as capability. It's how the system actually functions, allows hotels to get very creative in how they choose to use that, not just for day stays, but as I said, for things as simple as I want early check-in or late checkout. I can actually monetize that process. And even if I don't, I can calculate the value back to my guests. So if I have a rewards program, I can literally tell you in dollars how much value you just got by me being able to allow you early check-in, late checkout, because every one of those assets is actually monetized. Right. So I think that those 3 things, the cloud architecture, the flexible inventory management, and the 24-hour blocks of time are really sort of our 3 critical differentiators. And all of that is wrapped up in what we think is the most intuitive and user-friendly application in the industry.
Fantastic. It's fabulous. Thank you. And for all the audience, if you would like to stay in touch with all our guests, of course, you have LinkedIn, you can contact them. And I want to also take the occasion to thank also our panelists, so Lennert, Ellie, Thibault, and Sergio. And now we have the session of Masterclass. Probably Sergio will stay with us, but I want to thank you, all of you, for the discussion, and for also to Michael to present your pitch. So we move to the video to find out the Masterclass.
Greetings, everybody from Vail, Colorado. This is Andy Broderick from INFOR at 10,550 feet. Looking forward to a great series and to seeing everybody at the Revenue Manager. Be well, stay healthy, and don't ever ski in jeans.
Hello, welcome back, Andrew.
Thank you, Federica. It's great to be back.
I'm back too,
Also,
guys.
Andrew is back.
Also, me is back here. Thanks, Andrew. Anyway, so you guys, Federica, you are controlling the dashboard, so you can do that.
I had fun. Okay, so Andrew, if you're ready, let me see if you can share your screen so that we can.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Okay. Can you see it, Federica?
Not yet.
Okay.
Just click on share and select the screen, the window.
There we are.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So to you.
Now can you see? Okay, very good. Well, thank you.
We see the wrong side, I think. We see the one with the preview.
Let's see.
But it's okay. I mean, we can go ahead and but the slide is a little bit smaller.
Is that better?
Yeah, perfect.
Much better. Very good. Very good.
Perfect.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever we are broadcasting. I hope that everyone is well. And this is the latest series, and I'm most honored and humbled to be able to present Masterclass. And this particular iteration is RevPAR to RevPAM, revenue per available room, as it's evolved into revenue per available meter. And we'll sort of address some of the nomenclature towards the end of the session. But first of all, my name is Andy Broderick, and I had spent just about 15 years in operational revenue management, having been fortunate enough to support Viceroy Hotels and Resorts and Montage International. And one of the things that I saw, in the evolution of the discipline was really the evolution away from historical, or I guess characteristic revenue management of just rooms, with the changing dichotomy of the ownership model, the asset manager model, and ultimately the stress and the pressure to extract more flow. What the revenue manager did evolved into total revenue management versus just rooms. And when I say that, I mean conference space, outlet revenue, spa revenue, activities revenue, and comprehensively the output of the hotel. And one of the things that that specifically, that pragmatically it translated into for somebody like me was when we developed a business plan, when we developed a strategy, whether it was a go-to-market or a business dynamic or a market segment output. Really, the stress, the impetus was on creating strategies that edified everybody. Obviously, depending upon service level and location and output and things like that, the cost structures were different with respect to loss leaders within a hotel and things like that. But, ultimately what we did, consciously had to be good for everybody. So from an agenda perspective, what we'll talk about, what is function-based revenue management? The difference between guest rooms and function rooms, the approach to yielding to both of them, the all-important key performance indicators, and sort of the cross-pollination between the two, and then ultimately from a revenue management perspective and also from a systems perspective is how do we get the data? How do we set up our go-to-market folks for success after we've extrapolated this strategy and tasked them with certain objectives? So what is function-based revenue management? There's been some anecdotal articles and also some suggestions in the last maybe 10 years to suggest that this really is going to be something that comes into focus as a measure. And specifically, a Cornell article that we'll reference, stated that the conference space revenue, specifically based upon how that revenue flows relative to other contributors within the hotel organization, could be the second largest contributor to the hotel. The proliferation of the social catering dynamic and the function space management really brings it into focus as a key indicator of a hotel or a resort's success, both in the short and long-term period. And again, to sort of preface the comment with pre-COVID, you're looking at, a booking window that could be considerably longer than a garden variety rooms reservation, which is to say the 2, 3, 4 years out, just given the organizational dynamic and, the planning that goes involved, this becomes a very important optimization, a part of the overall strategy. And in fact, for many hotels, the meetings and events revenue can account for a rather significant portion of performance. So obviously bringing that into focus and making that as strong and as salient as possible, as far out in the future as humanly possible, that can really sort of dictate success as well. So, some more specifics here. I mean, we endeavor to maximize the contribution of each individual meeting room within an aggregated resort or conference center based upon the time that it's available. There are some similarities, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but it is certainly not identical to a guest room revenue management strategy. And obviously, from a cross-pollination, if you will, it's almost become a thing of the past, which is to say, from a quoting perspective and all of the dynamics that accompany the renaissance of group business and business travel, it is, I don't think, even more an adjunct as of traditional revenue management as it is a key component of it. And it will continue to be more important going forward. So guest rooms versus function rooms. From a global perspective, function space, we characteristically have a lower inventory base. Rather complex logistics, I would submit, just because of the moving parts that accompany the conference space, whether it's food and beverage, it's equipment, it's external vendors, it's setup that accompany it. The best and the most challenging component of managing the function space is the customizability. If you look at any garden variety meeting room, it can materialize into pretty much anything you can imagine. The complex operational aspects of it, whether it's compartmentalizing a larger ballroom into individual smaller spaces, or how you sell, something large based upon delegate attendee contribution, things like that. The capacity, to tie back to that, is tremendously flexible. The need and the skill to be able to, to streamline those spaces, to say, this is our minimum capacity based upon a certain delegate yield. This is our maximum capacity just based upon perhaps what, a local city or municipality might permit. There's a lot of factors that go into, to trying to yield that. And then the ability to combine spaces. Now, juxtaposed against guest rooms, higher inventory, more simpler logistics. I would say, it's tried and true. Obviously the function space is more of a nascent, technology and area revenue management, whereas guest rooms, we're honing in and being a little bit more specific as it pertains to arrivals and departures, to housekeeping, to R&M, and that translates also to simple operational aspects. The ability to formulate a forecast based on some historical data, as we alluded to before, but also some forward-looking data that tracks booking window pattern, that tracks cancellation pattern, and willing that into reality as it relates to a forecast. The flexibility is a little bit more lax, which is to say, I said, just based upon the size of the room. There's not a tremendous amount of occupants, at least theoretically, in any given guest rooms. And also the combination, whether it's a suite that will attach to a guest room or multiple rooms that can be connected together. Those are some of the similarities, at least from function space to guest rooms. A slightly more detailed comparison is we drill this down a little bit more organically between function space and guest rooms. On the function space side, residential and non-residential, and day parts. And we alluded a little bit to this. My colleague, I believe from Duetto, spoke on this. Is that the function space, I mean, could theoretically be sold in the same room 3 times a day, 4 times a day. If there was an early morning meeting, a lunch breakout, and then perhaps, an evening function, whereas guest rooms, for the most part, unless you're operating in an airport area, typically it's an overnight stay. Multiple sales in the same day under function space, and then event types, again, as we spoke of before. If you can imagine it, you can probably will it into existence in function space. The one challenge that does sort of segregate function space versus guest rooms are the limited distribution channels. We're lucky enough, as far as guest rooms are concerned, to have our brand.com, we have our voice agent, we have our CRO, we have our third-party partners that allow visibility and exposure of our inventory across many different channels. Anecdotally, with my revenue management experience in the past, theoretically, anybody who had Wi-Fi and a laptop could become an online travel agent, whether they're parsing inventory from different sources or have the access to additional inventory base. You could sell your rooms. And then function space has slightly dynamic pricing, and I submit that that's something that is probably going to change as the evolutionary dynamics of catering and conference and groups come back. But by and large, there's a certain, I don't want to say fixed and unyielding price point, but based upon a floor and ceiling, it does not have quite the flexibility that the guest rooms would. Now, on the guest room side, residential, nightly stays, sold once per day, and it's predicated as again, one of my colleagues said, 20 hours of occupancy, from check-in time until checkout time. And we have almost unlimited distribution channels, as far as guest rooms go. I mean, the way that, inventory rates and space can proliferate, on a number of different visibility channels is unlimited and very dynamic. Again, anecdotally, having worked in an urban environment, we might be changing rates 10, 12, 15 times a day, just based upon hotel or activity that's taking place in the hotel or in the market. So let's drill down a little bit further to the key performance indicators, and this obviously gets a little bit closer to the, to the data extrapolation and how we will these KPIs into existence. Function space KPIs, from my perspective, the benchmarks are revenue by availability by the area, occupancy by availability, and then I would submit that the most key indicator is revenue per attendee. And this ties very closely to revenue per guest and guest rooms. To further sort of talk about this is that we would frequently do analyses on interflow of guests, not so much in terms of what they have as far as room night spend, because from a parity perspective, this theoretically should be very similar, notwithstanding the commissions and whatnot that you pay. But does a guest who's coming from one channel spend similarly in the outlets? Does he or she go to the spa? Does he or she go to the 3-meal restaurant? Have activity spend? So guest room metrics, as we all know, we have our beloved RPI, we have our occupancy, and we have our revenue per guest. So there is a little bit of cross-pollination. There is a little bit of similarity between the function space, revenue management, and guest room. But we'll drill down a little bit further, as we get into the nuts and bolts of how we actually will yield this. So a great quote here is, information is the oil of the 21st century, and analytics is the combustion engine. And I submit that, a prepared, team with a very, enunciated blueprint, if you will, in terms of where they want to go, profitability-wise, occupancy-wise, output-wise, is extremely favored. Now, I also would submit that a budget, as we're coming up here to characteristic budget seasons for most hotels, is but a first forecast. Things will change. The world and the markets are still in a tremendous state of entropy, so we need to be ready to pivot, but at least gives a little bit of a guidebook to how our business will be managed. So our challenges. These are the two real benchmarks, everyone, as it pertains to how we'll evolve the function-based revenue management into reality and really incorporate it as a science to part of revenue management. One is the data extraction. Where are we going to sort of get these data points from? How are we going to know displacement data, profitability data, the realities, the logistics of a full house versus a house that's half full, and how do we sort of will that into an occupancy forecast? How do we will that into a labor management and a product management dynamic? And then the KPIs. Without the data, it becomes very difficult to benchmark those key performance indicators. Knowing that our go-to-market folks that are working in sales and catering can visualize the difference between a room left vacant or a room at 50% occupancy or a room at 100% occupancy with requisite food and beverage contribution and activity, how does that affect the bottom line? I've always sort of advocated the need of making those folks partners in the revenue management too. I mean, the greater extent to which they're able to understand the impact of a decision or an RFP being accepted based on certain criteria, they've got a vested interest, and they all of a sudden become profit partners in terms of output. So function-based KPIs, and we've alluded to this a little bit, and I'll just go over this quickly, but we endeavor to have occupancy by function space, by physical space, and by area, revenue by the same criteria, delegates, number of attendees. This is an interesting dynamic, to manage, because obviously, I mean, if in a room that would theoretically hold 100, we could sell it from a function space revenue management dynamic to 10, so long as there's a minimum and there's a corresponding revenue that accompanies. Usage hours by day part, by hours. One of the things that I sort of discovered was the need to be mindful of the dead time, if you will. I mean, if we've got a benchmark event that is meant to take 2 hours, but the client wants to spend 4 with no accompanying food and beverage and nothing to complement that, that's fine. But we also have to be mindful of the profitability impact that has on the possible displacement of an event that might come in before, after, or during that might be more profitable. Average spend by delegate, and then conversion rate. And this obviously is a big consideration on the room side, and I would submit that it's a big consideration on the function space side too. The interflow of an RFP or a lead for conference space is gold. I mean, it is absolutely penultimate, especially now, as it relates to the future-looking management of our business. So how can we, as directors of revenue managers, set our go-to-market folks up for success, set our sales and catering folks up for success to be able not only to be able to respond quickly with fingertip data, but also to have options, and we'll talk about that a little bit here as we get into further drill down as far as the data goes. So how do we get the data, from theory to practice? And this will submit a practical application as far as your internal sales and catering system to modify the interflow of data and then to sort of set up your go-to-market folks for success. So to effectively optimize the function space, what we want to do is to streamline the sales and catering operations with science that is tried and true for revenue management to maximize profitability while optimizing our function space utilization. We'll do that in 4 different ways. We want to automate complex selling decisions, visualize booking alternatives. One of my great DOSMs from Montage told me, he said, it's not so much what you book as it is what you move. Control pricing and discounts and enable guest self-service booking. And this is a great touchstone if your business model, if your hotel allows this. If you've got a number of I would say, smaller meeting space dynamics, why not let the guest sort of drive that from the beginning and book it like a guest room? It takes away some of your internal labor. You're not going to have any displacement, and you control that, on your booking engine or on your website, much as you would just the availability of rooms. So the building blocks in terms of the internalization of the data, event packages, I would submit that what a hotel could do as it goes to set up its sales and catering system to really optimize to potentiate the output of those sales and catering folks is look at 7 to 10 different event types and say, well, this is typical for what we would see, on a midweek pattern or on a weekend pattern, so that the sales folks, as we'll see in a second here, can drill down really quickly and say what my RFP, what my potential client is looking for, fits most closely into this package, with minor customizations. Then your sales and catering folks have got the ability to push that out, respond to that RFP, and get that business converted. The great thing about this is it minimizes the manual labor and the customization. The decision insights present a dashboard of decision insights on the event calendar to aid the salesperson. We'll take a look at, a garden variety screenshot that shows this. Guest service, self-service portals, as we discussed before, and the function space quote. And this really is where the revenue management principles, the applications, become apropos for function space. The displacement analyses, the need or the willingness to sort of move or shuffle, within a certain time frame. Alternative quotes and also predictive models, right? This ultimately will help in terms of forecasting for function space management. A lot of what-if analyses and optimization versus closing down, as we talked about before, a larger ballroom, for example, to only be rented in its aggregate or only be rented in parsed off parts. That may be more profitable, from a hotel's perspective. That is something that is baked into the overall sales strategy and helps the go-to-market folks to be more responsive and ultimately yield more profitability when business is converted. So here is a theoretical new event, right? As we can see highlighted in the top part of the screen. Would go in and say, okay, I want to take a look at a new event. Based upon this day, the sales and catering professional can look and see what else is going on this day, and what else do we have going on in the hotel? And more importantly, what is the impact on all the respective outlets of having this new function that I'm going to quote that has 250 people on everything from guest flow to valet parking to outlet revenue and things like that. This is the first step. And then, as we talked about before, the package type in the package, it's important that we have this set up so that whomever is quoting this RFP can drill down and say, okay, this fits very closely into this composition. If it is a wedding, if it is an executive retreat, it's a quick board meeting. These package types from a setup perspective, no matter what the hotel or resort is, if they're drilled down and they're there, again, as I said, the customizability would be minimal. And we can turn around and get this RFP out and get it into the guest hand as quickly as possible. Tape chart, as we talked about before, just to sort of see what's going on a more organic level from our blocks. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. Right, based upon our main quotation, what we put in, your system should be able to return suggestions. It's determined based upon all the metrics and all the factors that we've input. This is a great booking. If you're able to do this, it makes sense from a profitability perspective. Your booking this doesn't theoretically displace something that we could book that's bigger, more profitable, and most importantly, to tie back to one of our KPIs, it meets the minimum contribution as far as delegate, right? So, I mean, what the client is looking for from an RFP perspective, whether it's food and beverage spend or whether it's timing spend or time of year, it meets and exceeds the minimum acceptable contribution as far as delegate goes. I would submit that what's even more important is that if we chose alternative 3, right? It really educates the sales and catering staff from a budget perspective and a forecast perspective and a planning perspective. Not so much that it's an unfavorable opportunity, but why? It doesn't necessarily meet our minimum. It doesn't sort of meet what we're looking for with respect to what we're trying to accomplish in the short term and the long term. And this again becomes an educational tool going forward. So I'm going to break precedent really quick here and answer a quick question that came up on LinkedIn, pertinent to when we posted this. Is there a simple means of converting revenue per available meter to gross operating profit per available meter? Why not have this as a common metric in a hotel's sales and catering application? This is a great question, and I don't think that there's a simple answer here. But what I would say is that GOP, gross operating profit, does draw into a number of factors and considerations that may not be directly represented in any hotel sales and catering application or software. And the reason I say that is that, some of the variables would not become known until after the event has consummated, actually after it's taken place. And those might be external vendors, they might be commission that are paid, in order to have this particular event come into the hotel. So is there a simple means? No. However, responding to, our clients, demand of really sort of evolving, to a total revenue management model, and specifically incorporating function-based revenue management into the overall RM strategy, we as a provider need to get there. And I think that this will be an important metric going forward. So I thank you very much for the opportunity and for the time. And I hope that this, did illuminate what we perceive as being a continually important part of a hotel and resort's overall strategy. It is a tremendous profitability channel, and successful deployment, statistics, and data management will usher it in as a continual good source of profitability.
Right, amazing. So we're still here, guys, from the suite of on top of the world, Ushuaïa Ibiza. Thank you, Andrew. It was brilliant. You didn't know that you will connect with us since the beginning of the episode, or you just checking when was your turn?
Yes.
Okay, so you better go back and watch the recording. We did a nice introduction showing the location we are sitting, and it's a 10,000 euro night suite here, and you should have a look at it.
Very nice.
Good. Thank you, and see you on the next episode. Ciao, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Ciao. Bye. All right, so we're here now with Chris, Henry, Diego is here next to me. Unfortunately, cannot hear, but it's a combination here of setting and info and webcam there. It was a little bit complicated today, differently from the other episode, but I think the audience enjoyed that, right? Henry, what do you think? Chris?
Go ahead, Chris.
Absolutely. We had a ton of amazing comments and a lot of interaction. I already got some really great feedback on the back end. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. This is a really special episode. Unfortunately, I'm not on the island. But yeah.
For the next year, we will be all together here making the new season. For sure.
Awesome.
So Diego.
Yeah.
Did you answer the question about how you revenue manage your 10,000 euro per night suite?
This is the secret sauce, my friend. And I need to say that we don't have a lot of time today because we have sold that room for today half an hour ago. So we needed to close that curtain because they are cleaning the room, because in 15 minutes some guests
are staying.
Yeah, some guests are staying in the room. So you can imagine how the business is moving here.
So my final question is to Enzo. Which exotic island is your next destination?
What is going to be the next island?
Next island, maybe Formentera. It's just close here, half an hour by ferry. Actually, I'm going there tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much.
And so is living the nice life here in Ibiza.
Hey, come on. It's my pleasure life,
Thank you very much, everyone, to stay here with us.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Done?
Enzo, last words for you.
Well, guys, really no words. I have a big thanks to Sergio and Diego to give us this opportunity to be here today. And it was fun because at some point during the episode, really, Diego
called me and said, "I'm sorry, we have to leave the room in time because we sold the room 10,000 euros." And I said, okay, we can support that, we can afford that. Anyway, thank you guys, thank you Chris, thank you Henry, thank you Federica, really for helping me today running the episode. Thank you Diego, and I'll see you on the 22nd of July for the last episode. It's going to be a great one again, and so we'll see you there. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.